right, cool.
So, hello everyone. Happy Friday. As we were just saying, off air or whatever, Friday stream. It wouldn't be quite Friday without a stream. And there's just something about like the live element of it, the hangout kind of thing that like gives like the weekend vibe, right? And it's kind of funny. Like for me, I don't really have a weekend because I do all my work whenever. And so I work on the weekends. Sometimes I just have like a really lazy Thursday and I'm just like doing, well, not really lazy, but I'm just like chopping wood instead of doing like work. But it's just, it gives that like we're coming into the weekend kind of vibe. I don't know if you agree. I mean, I always get like worn out by like live stream type stuff in the middle of the week.
I mean, I feel like I get worn out of live stream stuff whenever I do it too often. There was even a time when I was doing like a bi-weekly or I was doing a weekly stream and I was like, when I stopped doing it, I was like, oh my gosh, I don't miss that at all.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But I mean, I do like to live stream. I don't like the pre-recorded like as much. It's not as fun.
Yeah. So from a content perspective, like of making content and stuff, or like the end product of the content, I do tend to like the pre-recorded stuff because you got some flexibility as far as the actual content, the quality, and all that kind of stuff. And it's just also like that was a little rough. Let me cut that out, or like there was stuff like that. Whereas the live streams, the thing about the live streams is it's just the live energy of it. That's really why you do it, because it's live. You can interact with stuff. Almost no one ever gave me donations when I did like regular stuff. As soon as I did live streams, people start throwing nothing big, but like it's just like to get in on that stuff. And I don't know. I mean, the free market's a very strange thing, right? Sometimes it tells us things that I'm not ready to hear,
Yeah, lots of the time.
Yeah. Let me see. How many people? We got a few people watching. There we go. The live chat finally popped up. Hey, everyone. Everyone. Sorry for the misspell. How's the sound? The sound should be good. I mean, YouTube, I never have problems. But then on Odyssey, every once in a while I start it and it just like doesn't sound right. And I have to restart it. But it is what it is.
Sounds good there too right now, though?
Yeah, I think so.
Cool.
I mean, from my end, it seems like it. Yeah, that's the other thing is like in going for like 4 minutes, and a lot of times, as I've mentioned a million times again, I'm starting to hit like Joe Rogan syndrome when he tells like the same episode, like the same like story every other episode, and people, it's like, well, not everyone listens to everything, but it's kind of the same thing where. I always, you need to give the audio only listeners get all pissed off when I used to leave in all this chatter part. They're like, you're stupid, I want to hear it. I'm like, all right. So I had to cut that out. And, yeah. Then also like Ken Bozak just put in his like 5 to 6 minute intro on his podcast. It just like plays and then he gets to it. And by that time people are actually watching. So I just think that's kind of funny. All right. So, apologies for the story I tell every single podcast. And there you go. Let me get this intro graphic going, and then we'll actually start the thing for real. So, hey everyone. Happy Friday. Hope you have a great week behind you, and hope you have an even better weekend ahead of you. Get out and do something. I mean, don't just be sitting at home doing whatever. You can still get your work and chores done, but get out and do something. I command you. I'm joined by the one and only Nergirl 007 or Nicole Grinstead. How's it going?
Hey, awesome. Thanks for having me back, Joel.
Yeah, no problem. How's that Yoo-hoo taste? Or whatever.
It's not Yoo-hoo. It's Pete's Coffee.
Oh, that's a lot better.
Yeah.
I remember, was it Kanye was doing the Yoo-hoo with the ski mask on Alex Jones thing, I think. And that's kind of what brought the Yoo-hoo back into the forefront of the public discourse.
Ah, okay. I did not know where that came from.
Yeah. I had not seen a Yoo-hoo in a very long time. So let's just remind you guys, you can go to cointr.ee/the desert links, cointr.ee, and throw a little donation for a super chat. If it's not working, just yell at me in the regular live chat. Hey, I sent you a super chat. It didn't go through. Here it is. And I will be duped into taking you seriously, whether or not you actually paid. But for the people who actually have NFTs, either from being on the show or, buying them, and believe it or not, there are both, you can go to the Digital Cash Rundown channel in my Discord and just start throwing away, questions and stuff. And those are the ones that I'm compelled by the power of capitalism to read. I can't really dodge those, unlike I can ignore all the ones on YouTube I want. So, yeah.
Never read the YouTube comments, Joel. Never.
See, I'm at that spot where I can, because I'm not famous. And so I'm at the spot where I actually get comments. Like there's like a half dozen, like 6 or so comments on most videos at least. But they're all like good, and there's a couple of weird ones, but they're mostly good. You just, at some point you hit a critical mass of like fame where just people just want to just throw random, like then you get all the weird, crazy stuff just coming in, and they don't really care about small fish. So, it's like the good comments are the ones who are like, oh, I want to comment on this video to the person who made this video because I have something relevant to the content of this. Whereas the other ones are just, let me just say anything so I'll be heard, and I'm going to say it on a high popularity video. So I don't get that yet, I do. Yeah, so let me hit this first thing right here. It's been a little bit of drama going on here. So Cameron Winklevoss of the Winklevoss twins, he seems to be the one who likes to do all the talking for some reason. But anyway, he released an open letter to the board of Digital Currency Group, because for those who've been, I wouldn't say living under a rock, but those who've been not paying attention to that whole drama, Digital Currency Group owns everything. Everything that Binance doesn't own, they own, right? So part of this is Gemini, which is a popular exchange, I guess. And part of it was Genesis, a lending program that, Gemini kind of offered. So it kind of affected both of them. And Genesis went insolvent pretty much. It went bust like a lot of things. And according to what Cameron is saying here, he seems to be saying that Digital Currency Group said, okay, well, we're bailing out our subsidiary here. But what they did is a promissory note redeemable in 5 years. Basically just said, here's money. Actually, no money. None at all. No cash in the bank. We're going to maybe give you some money in 5 years kind of thing. And that's kind of being alleged. And basically they're in a really tight spot. And I guess Barry Silbert of DCG seems, again, this is the one side of the story, right? Seems to be saying that it seems like he pulled a little accounting fast one just to say everything's solvent, everyone go away, hoping that everything would go better. And it didn't. And now he's hanging Gemini and Genesis out to dry. That seems to be that side of things. Now, they also said, oh, spurious, terrible, stupid, blah, blah, blah. What is, I should actually scroll down right here. This is another desperate and unconstructive publicity stunt from Cameron to deflect blame for himself and Gemini, blah, blah, blah. They say a lot of stuff like that. I read that. Yeah, they say a lot of stuff like that, which may or may not be true. But the point is, I have not heard them give counter specifics. I've just heard them say, you're all full of it. But they haven't said, no, this is what actually happened. So I don't know if you have a hot take on that old mess.
I mean, I think that I, to some degree at least, agree with a lot of the people on the thread who are saying things like, Gemini wants to make their customers whole in the same way that DCG and Genesis wants to make their customers whole. But also, Gemini needs to assume some of the responsibility for trusting Genesis, because they know better than anyone that you can't trust centralized entities. Like, why did they think that it would be different? And, accepting some level of responsibility for the role that you played in, the insolvency of whatever it is that you created is, I think, important, like there is a degree of responsibility, whether it's 100% or not, but just trying to pass the buck on to someone else, I don't know, that doesn't sit very well with me.
Yeah, it seems like a combination of buck passing, right? It seems like the Winklevi are sort of like they had a risky product for their customers, and there is a risk associated with that, and just any lending thing should have risk, and it doesn't seem like they had enough of a contingency plan or something figured out of what's going to happen if this doesn't turn out well, right? And I think that they should own up to that blame a little bit more. Like, I don't know if they've given asides of, oh, we're sorry, blah, blah, blah. That being said, now that they're in this situation, they're trying to make things better. And on the other hand, it seems like the people who primarily screwed up, I guess, might be like, it's really hard to pinpoint the blame, but like DCG seems to be trying to completely pass the buck rather than saying, oh, we don't have money, we need money to make our customers whole. They seem to be saying, we're going to give you money. Oh, wait, we're not actually giving you money. And then kind of like saying like, screw it, like, I'll let you out. So it's kind of, I'd love to know what the behind the scenes discussions were. I'm sure that there was a lot of stuff about like, well, we'll give up some of our money and you give up some of yours. We'll like figure this out together. Or like, what if you guys just bailed us out like half of it and we just owned up to the lot, like, and then they're like, no. And then,
Well,
so.
I mean, essentially that letter is kind of saying exactly that. They were like, if Barry Silbert is replaced as the CEO, we're confident that, Gemini and Genesis can work together, right?
Mm-hmm.
Isn't that like the end paragraph? So, I mean, that is kind of what they're saying. They're just saying we're not willing to work with Barry Silbert.
Yeah. And it kind of makes you wonder, like, what's specific with that guy that is being difficult to work with. And there's a ton of speculation. But one thing I've been told, or I seem to have gleaned from chatting with, some people I've known at DCG or people who are more familiar with that, seems to be that DCG does have a lot of illiquid assets. And they would probably bail out Genesis if they had the liquidity on hand to do that. But they don't. And they'd have to just decimate some of their bags in order to get there. So like some of these low cap coins that they're holding on to, that they're pumping, that they'd have to sell some of them and then just absolutely wreck. And they don't want to, maybe from a positive, like a altruistic perspective, they don't want to cause more ripple effects throughout the entire crypto industry. Or from the selfish thing, they want to just cut their losses with this, and they don't want to they have a lot more on paper value than liquid value, and they don't want to just gut all of DCG. So that's probably what it is.
Yeah, I mean, they make investments, right? So they would have like seed round investments and things that haven't paid off yet.
Yeah. Well, never fear, because the government's here to help, right? So
right. Yeah.
Geminis and Gemini and Genesis charged with the SEC with selling unregistered securities. The charges relate to Gemini's crypto asset lending program, Gemini Earn, according to the Securities and Exchange Commission. Which, I mean, if you're enjoying the drama, this is like the little cherry on top right now, where it's just like you're enjoying the entire crypto ecosystem getting shaken out, and then all of a sudden, like the squeaky clean, I don't want to say squeaky clean, but like the big fish of the suits, DCG, oh, now they have to take an L. And then it's like, well, now there we go. Now the government shows up. But, I mean, I don't know if this helps anyone. Like, yeah, which Earn customer is going to be helped by the SEC's action here?
I mean, I don't know, like, I think some people are still probably no one who's watching this, right? But like some people somewhere are still under the impression that the SEC exists to protect retail investors or to protect ordinary people. But I mean, I don't think that you or I share that delusion, right? So like, what is the SEC doing? I mean, like, they're just going after money.
Yeah, and it'd be still too late. Like, they should have done something about this when Earn was still a thing. And I don't think they should have done anything, but you know what I'm saying. The time to strike would have been then, right? When you could actually protect a customer, or in theory, right? But now it's too late. Now it's just like trying to cause more trouble for the entities that could possibly help out a little bit still. But as a fun side effect of this, and I don't think that, I mean, in pretty much no area do I think that government intervention tends to make the problem better. This is kind of a situation, however, that I do think it has a potential to shake out some of the shadier actors, just because I wouldn't say shadier actors necessarily, although yes, but shake out a lot of CeFi, where, I mean, can you imagine any investor from 2021, who, especially those who like got money stuck on Voyager, who lost something in FTX, who got one of these like Celsius, who got one of these, they tried to earn money off their money and they got wrecked. And then the SEC sued or got involved with some of their things. Now we get to 2024. How many are going to be like which company are they going to trust now? Are they going to trust companies, or are they going to be like, well, I heard this like DeFi protocol that like my favorite Twitter crypto influencer person, he says that he's looked at the code and it looks nice, and then I'm going to just do DeFi instead, where this can't happen.
So, I mean, like, on the one hand, all of the statistical, like all of the data right now is showing that we're trending toward DEXs becoming more popular in the next cycle. Like, there's, more volume on DEXs than there are on centralized exchanges. Now, that said, I work for a company that incubated a decentralized exchange and work a lot on that decentralized exchange and with that community. So all of the time, people come into the group every single day, multiple times a day, multiple people, when Binance listing, when Crypto.com listing, when Coinbase listing. And we say things like, each of those platforms wants 6 figures to list the asset. We don't need them. They need us, And so if they want to list it for free, we're happy for them to list it because that means more exposure. We don't want to take 6 figures from the treasury in the depths of a bear market and pay for those listings, not only because that could by itself be enough to designate the asset a security because that's the sale, right? But also because we don't need them. They need us because it's wrong, because it's extortion. And people want it. People are like insisting that they want it. So I want to believe that people will trend towards wanting more decentralized products in the future. But just from a realistic viewpoint, I don't know if that's the case.
Yeah, the funny thing on that, though, is I think that's in the DEX world, the same problems are still going to be there. Because for one thing I noticed, there's been a lot of projects that have been scrambling to try to get listed on Thorchain, for example, over the last couple of years. And I remember like Thorchain specifically in the case that I'm more familiar with, which is the Dash case, in early 2021, saying, "Oh, we're gonna add Dash, blah blah blah," and then for 2 whole years, kind of like, saying, kind of like holding that little carrot, and then starting to be like, well, let's add, like, Doge is hot, now let's add Doge real quick. And then it's just like, Luna's hot, let's add Luna. And then that didn't go out. And then just like trying to find the hottest thing to add rather than just like add, whatever. And I'm kind of noticing among, purportedly decentralized protocols, I've noticed a similar dynamic to like everyone's crowding around every asset's trying to get listed on the new hotness. And then like, they're kind of playing, well, how, I mean, our devs are super busy. What if we, you built the integration from scratch yourself so we could just hit like merge a pull request and that's it. And like all this stuff still happens in the DEX world.
But see, so that's exactly the difference, though. So you don't have the option to list your asset and provide liquidity on a centralized exchange, and maybe you don't have the time, or potentially the tech ability, not you, but just anyone, right, to add whatever asset you want to a decentralized exchange or to the chain. But the option to do it exists, right? So like, even though our developer team may not make the time to create a whatever Polygon Dash token, anybody could, and then anybody could supply liquidity for that token on the DEX. There is no one who will stop you from supplying liquidity. There's no one who will stop you from trading. There's no one who will stop you from creating the asset.
Yeah, that is the big difference. Also, when you're going to these cross-chain exchanges that every node has to run a node of every chain supported, et cetera, et cetera. Now we're starting to see pretty soon there's going to be a Thorchain fork, I guess, in the next couple of weeks or so. I don't exactly know the exact timeline. But then one thing I've noticed is a lot of these front ends tend to be aggregators rather than like single platform DEX stuff. So they'll plug into Thorchain, Pancake Swap, Sushi Swap, Trader Joe, and all that under a single interface. And you'll be able to, right now there's only one real king in town as far as like the cross-chain stuff. But once you have a few different ones, then you'll be like, well.
Axelar, right?
What was that?
Axelar?
Yeah, I'm not familiar with them.
Oh, who are you thinking?
I was talking about Thorchain.
Oh, okay.
Like L1 to L1 swaps. But at some point you'll be able to have a few of them. So instead of like having Binance, Coinbase, Kraken, FTX, all these kinds of things there, you'll still have, I guess, the DEX equivalent of those, but you'll be able to have one interface that sort of aggregates them all, and then you just kind of go. And there are some swap aggregators that work with centralized exchanges already, but when you have that in like the DEX world, then of course, the swaps are cheaper if they're on more of these, and there's less slippage and a bunch. There's still some dynamics, but it's the gatekeeping for like hundreds of thousands of dollars, if not more, is kind of going to start to ease off a little bit.
Okay, so speaking of gatekeeping, I just have to say this, speaking specifically of gatekeeping in the DEX world.
I am gatekeeping the live chat with my NFTs. You need one to use it. Sorry, go ahead.
So yeah, speaking of gatekeeping in the DEX world, so one way that DEXs theoretically do gatekeep assets is by not whitelisting them. So that's like, having a token that you can't search, you have to search by the contract address. So, it doesn't have the logo available. You have to search it by the contract address. And then on Uniswap specifically, there will be a pop-up warning that says like, this token is added from the internet, or just so you know, this token is not sold on major US exchanges. If you're still comfortable trading it, click here. But what's really funny? What's really funny about that is that it doesn't do that for every token that's not sold on major US exchanges. It only does it for certain ones.
Yeah. It's very specific with the whitelisting kind of thing. It's sort of the same with like, I've been trying to get. One of the reasons why I've gotten more into Polygon NFTs is because I started on Wax, and then Atomic Hub won't whitelist me, and then it's just like it's kind of hidden. It's like, and they want all of, and I keep on asking for more and more. They keep asking for more and more things. Like, well, what about this? We need like these project files to make sure you. And I'm like, well, they're like 12 gigabytes here, and there's no option to upload 12 gigabyte files here. Like, this is starting to get a little ridiculous, and so. Yeah, there's always those kinds of things. Let me hit this super chat real quick from Hilawe. Hi, Hilawe. He says, at least the SEC looks bad as well because of SBF and Gensler. So it looks hypocritical trying to say it was all a crypto issue. It was both a scam and a government corruption issue.
Well, and it wasn't even a real crypto issue. It was a centralized exchange issue. It was a centralized platform issue.
It was a YOLO bro issue.
Yeah, was what?
A YOLO bro issue.
Yes, it was a YOLO bro issue. And then I don't know if anybody has seen this, but have you watched on Netflix? There's like a mini series about Bernie Madoff.
No, I haven't. I'm relatively familiar with his whole case, but like.
Well, I mean, really specifically, the thing that I found like interesting and I don't know, relevant about
Mm-hmm.
that series was they get into how the SEC totally knew the entire time. They had been warned like multiple times throughout, and they were like, "Nah, we're not taking on Madoff." Like they could have acted to protect retail, and they didn't.
Yeah. I'm sure that's a consistent kind of a
Yeah.
theme. But like at the same time, the option to disband or like redo the SEC isn't something that it's just like easily at the fingertips of the average individual, like the average citizen. That's the thing.
Yeah. But so really quick, I know we have like a million more topics,
That's
but
fine.
disbanding 3-letter government agencies, I'm sure that you saw the bill to potentially disassemble the IRS, right?
Yes.
And that was like, I mean, probably never going to happen, but like really exciting that that's even on the table.
Yeah, it's great. And the thing where that gets a little bit weird for me, which because I'm like 100% on board and beyond. The problem is a lot of times it's like Republican lawmakers proposing that, and it's kind of weird. They're not exactly I mean, supposedly on paper they used to be a small government party, but they're not really a small government, small spending party. They still want, defense contractors paid out the ass. They still want, just everything, spending everywhere. Except now they don't like the tax man coming after people's money, but they still want people to owe that money to the government. And it's a little weird. Like, what are you going to do if you abolish the IRS? And they're trying to be like, well, let's just do a fair tax or something like that. And that has its own issues. I do think that if you abolish the IRS, you will definitely have to radically simplify the tax code. The problem is I don't see that happening either. Like, because taxes are way too high for all the influential, powerful people to be paying them. And so without their loopholes,
Yeah. Yeah. But I mean, that was my preliminary understanding of it was that they intended to replace income tax with a consumption tax, right?
Mm-hmm.
So like there being a federal sales tax. So really so maybe you can make a lot of money and you don't necessarily spend a lot of it, but you pay taxes on what you spend. And that kind of makes sense to me. I don't know.
Yeah, I guess it depends on it depends on enforcement, depends on exactly how it'll be used. Like, are people going to get around that doing like a barter thing? Like, it's definitely going to make a lot of stuff go like underground, because now it's not like, oh, do you want to avoid the 5% whatever sales tax? Now it's like, do you want to avoid like literally a fifth of the price or a quarter of the price of the item? And then that incentivizes black markets to a certain extent. And obviously you don't think that local state jurisdictions are going to start to be like giving up their property tax laws and stuff like that either. And so it's like everything with government, it's a mess. But I do like the idea of like, screwing the IRS in the meantime, because the biggest problem with the IRS is not that they collect money from the people. The biggest problem is they harass and criminalize everyday people who would have an easy way of just paying what they owe, or what the government says they owe, I should clarify, and just be done with it. And yeah, so I would really love to see that go away, but at least just the posturing is also welcome, even if it never goes anywhere. All right, let me hit on, let's see. What's next? Of course. Sam Bankman-Fried, I didn't steal funds, and I certainly didn't stash billions away. The former FTX leader denied any involvement regarding the allegations that Alameda had used FTX customer funds, and said he was pressured into naming John Ray as CEO. So this isn't necessarily something I really want to spend a lot of time on specifically, because I don't believe homeboy anything he says, right? It's just a little much. But I do think it's kind of interesting, his like court of public opinion kind of thing, right? Because it's become clear that he's lost a lot of money, that his company was not supposed to be in the position to lose. It's not just like, oh, lending product went foul or something. It's just like a lot of money that should not have been at risk somehow became at risk and got lost. And there's not a lot of getting around that stuff. and he intends to plead not guilty, and the trial's still ongoing. He has a lot of power and influence, but he's also in a lot of trouble. So what do you think is his point in just like still trying to be like act like he's a free and innocent man and still trying to be a crypto thought leader and all this kind of stuff, you know, all over? Like, what is he getting at with all that?
I mean, I think that he's probably still thinking that if he can win in the court of public opinion, then he stands a better chance of winning in a court of law, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, like, before he was arrested, but after all the news of FTX insolvency and, you know, his involvement in that, do you remember, like, Forbes and Newsweek and Wall Street Journal publishing, like, what basically equated to these, like, puff pieces about him and how he was this, you know, altruistic guy who just got mixed up and, you know, accidentally lost everyone's money and he's like innocent. And I mean, that's definitely a PR team trying to frame things in a certain way so that people, you know, so that potentially the jurors and people around who will be jurors, right, like have this impression of him as this like nice, good guy. And I mean, I saw through that from the beginning, right? Like, do you remember when he was on the cover of Time and when everyone in crypto was like, oh, this is the best guy in crypto? I was like, that guy's a scumbag.
Yeah.
Like, you know, I mean, it was,
that's,
you know?
well, I mean, cover of Time, I mean, you know, the
Yeah.
leader of the Third Reich definitely was on there. So like, that's a good company you're keeping. But
Right.
the thing, so I didn't honestly know who he was until the whole like, debate with Eric Voorhees kind of thing. I'd heard of FTX only because they bought Blockfolio, and I'm like, why is it called FTX now? And I heard FTX here and there, but then the actual curly-haired, you know, piece of garbage that he is, I didn't even know that he existed until I started like, oh, the FTX guy. I'm like, oh, who's that? Is talking about regulating stuff and then so, but yeah, I think the public awareness campaign kind of thing he's doing. There's a couple of angles to that. Maybe first off, his lawyers keep telling him, no, don't do this, please, because the more he talks, the more he incriminates himself, I'm sure. And it's an awful idea. So either one of two things, or maybe a mix of them, is happening. Either he knows he's screwed and now he's just like he's going rogue. He's trying to find whatever he can to make him less screwed. Be like, well, let's make myself like a public celebrity, yeah, so that maybe the jurors can be influenced or blah, blah, blah. I mean, he's trying to that. That's probably a minority of what he's doing. I think he's also just like delusional. Like, this is who he is. He is Mr. like, he got used to being Mr. Crypto founder kind of thing and being like, I'm going to talk about effective validity. He's just not going to be like, oh, sorry, I was a fraud the whole time. I'm just going to like hunker down. Like, no, he still wants to be that guy. And he's still trying to be that guy. He just doesn't know when to stop. Kind of like, are you familiar with the Ceausescu moment, that comment? Romania's communist dictatorship, their dictator, Nicolae Ceausescu, was like very popular with his people for a while. But then he kept doing more and more out of touch stuff, like saying, well, look at how much food we have when like all the grocery stores are bare and stuff. And finally, he gave some speech where he was like, public speech, like he thought he was a darling, and then the crowd like turned against him, and he had this like his face just like changed. So when you realize like, oh no, I'm not a hero, and within a couple weeks, he and his wife were dragged out and shot. So it was like, that's that kind of like moment where I think SBF still thinks he's like the darling. And he still gets on shows, though, because now he's a darling for a very different reason, but he thinks it's the same reason, maybe.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. But so I actually don't know, because I don't pay that much attention, mostly because I think he like his whole thing and him get too much media coverage. So I just like try to stay away from it as much as I possibly can. But like, I don't really go through his threads. For a while, he did still have people who thought that, you know, he would turn it around, or who thought that he was innocent and were like, you know, defending him in threads, like kind of, you know, his simps. I don't know if that still exists. Have you like read through any of that?
Not too much lately. I think in the beginning, the simp stuff was just denial and bargaining stages of grief, you know, where they're just like, no, it's not true. It just, they're going to figure it out. Or just like, okay, guys, but what if we don't throw the criminal in jail? What if maybe we let him roll the dice one last time and I get some of my money back, so I don't have to go back to my family and say that I lost everything? I think there's a little bit of that. I don't know how much of that is still left over. I don't see a lot of it, but maybe he's also trying to build his Substack so he can monetize it and get out of this thing. I don't know. But at this point, also a very slight, so maybe I'll just build this off the next store because it's very, very related to this thing. But FTX allowed by bankruptcy judge to sell LedgerX and other assets. The FTX assets that will be sold include derivatives platform LedgerX and stock clearing platform Embed and its regional arms FTX Japan and FTX Europe. So they're already starting to pick apart the carcass and see what they can get out of it, which is, I think, the right thing to do. The funny thing about this whole thing is, I don't trust this guy. I think he's a devil. I think he has everything going for, he's got everything coming in, then some. That being said, to a certain extent, philosophically, I don't know about practically, no, but philosophically, I'm kind of on the same page with him as far as what to do next, because he wants to just give me a chance to get everyone whole. And where practically I don't agree with that at all, because, dude, this guy's just a thief. He's just going to screw up more things. It's going to be terrible. I'll just don't give him anything. Just throw away the key. But philosophically, him going to jail for a long time doesn't really help any of his customers, right? Any of his victims. And generally speaking, I don't like punitive justice in general. I'd much prefer.
Well, not to mention that we have privatized prisons, so they're just going to make money off of his. Why do we? I hear you.
Yeah, I mean, what if he's his paid retreat for the next 50 plus years or 100 years? I mean, how many of his victims are still going to have to pay that bastard money to keep him from having a job through taxes now because of that? That's a little messed up. I'd rather, I'd rather get something out of him. Make him, under direct supervision, make him work, still keep him living in a prison or some, modified prison, but, let him work and be productive, and literally 100% of his earnings
go to paying back his victims. Yeah, I think that's a great idea, Joel.
Yeah, I mean, I would like that. It's harder said than done, because it's easier said than done, because at some point, is he just gonna flip burgers and stuff because he likes that better than the high stress whatever, and you're just telling him well, you go back to prison if you don't work harder. And then it's just how hard can you work to not work super hard, but hard enough to stay out of prison? There's obviously some issues there if it's that big of a hole, but I mean, it is that big of a hole. I mean, what are the odds that an individual's income would be able to be enough to make whole all of his creditors eventually through his life? Probably not.
I mean, maybe not make them whole, but is something better than nothing?
Absolutely. The thing is, if he could make them whole and then get out of the hole, that's an incentive for him to work as hard as he can to make as much as he can to get out of there. But then the thing is, in a bank, there would have to be some sort of a victim restitution agreement kind of thing, which with that many victims is pretty hard. But if you could come up with that, and they'd be look, I understand I'm probably gonna get nothing. If you get us back 20%, we're going to let you go. Not let you ever do this kind of business again. But we'll then he's well, I only have to make back a few million now, or however many tens of millions probably still. But I don't have to make up this much. I'm just going to get back to work so that by the time I'm 58 or 64, whatever it is, I'll be ready to just be free and not have this managed existence. And maybe that would work. I don't know.
No, I mean, I think that's probably the most productive possible outcome. It's almost like a settlement with your victims rather than, or a plea bargain with your victims rather than a plea bargain with the government. I like it. I mean, Joel, have you ever thought about running for office?
You mean wasting my life away? I mean, I'd rather be the thought leader in the background and then scam everyone. Sorry, no, I'll leave that part out. But it would be interesting to see like what do you do like. It's like, okay, well, I can't give you everything you want. That's not on the table. Well, what else is on the table? But yeah, so that's kind of what the bankruptcy thing is doing. I mean, there are different forms of bankruptcy, right? Where like, obviously, like the Chapter 7 personal one or whatever, or Chapter 11 tend to be, just like, let's take what we can and figure it out. But there are some, I forget the chapters from back in my paralegal days, but there are some that have like payment plans. So it's like, okay, well, we get rid of some of your assets to pay your creditors now, and they're never gonna get 100% back. But you have an amount that's kind of agreed on, and you repay them that amount over a series of years. And then once you get that, then you're kind of free. The debt's discharged. You paid up, but you don't just lose all your stuff now. You lose some of your stuff now, but then you got to pay them too. But you never pay them back everything you owe them. So
speaking of this, just really quick, I think it was this morning or maybe it was yesterday, the judge in the Celsius case ruled that the debtors are responsible, like that, because they lent the assets to Celsius. So I wonder how different that will be in this case. Like, did that set some kind of precedent, or is it different because they didn't have the same terms of service?
It's funny. On this thumbnail for this video, I had a little like money flying away emoji thing over Genesis logo, and literally last week, so I'd like last week I had the same exact thing except it was a Celsius logo with the money fly thing, because that's what we talked about last week about the fact that just you gave him your money, sorry. Like, I think there must have been something in the terms and conditions, the fine print when lending, that was different. Like, you agree that you're basically becoming a co-investor, sort of. You're putting money in. They agree to pay you this plus interest back, and they try to make more money off of it. Whereas I think the FTX difference is that there was no expectation of anything like that. It was just, we're trading on the platform. We expected to buy this asset, have it, and then trade it for other ones and withdraw it at any time. It's not like a lending, it's not like an APY kind of a thing, So I think that might be the key differentiating factor, is that thing. I mean, if the judge says, you know what, sorry guys, you're all screwed, that would be insane. And I think that would, at that level, it would really start to cause like people to turn on the government in a big way. Whereas with like Celsius, that's kind of rotten for those people, but all the outsider onlookers are like, well, it was a lending platform. You did lend out your money, and sometimes you lose it, and there's a little bit less like sympathy, I should say, for that kind of an outcome. Whereas like with FTX, it's just like random people. Like, I know people who, for example, had like lost a few grand of like mobile coin, because that was that crypto that Signal, the Signal encrypted messenger, was going to use, and the only place you could get it was on FTX. So people just bought some, and they had some there, and then they lost it. And it's hard to be like, oh, people trying to do encrypted payments on Signal, oh, they were gambling their money away. They should have, they deserve that risk. It'll be a little harder for people like that. So
Got it.
That's just my gut feeling, but a judge could literally rule anything. And it would...
Well, and you probably haven't gone through like in depth the terms of service of the FTX user agreements, right? And I definitely haven't. So maybe there is something in there. Yeah,
there could be. And I don't go into a lot of terms of agreement because I can't think of any services that have any kind of money that I'd fight for if I lost. Like, I'm entirely into, in like my own keys, and then DeFi, which is sort of my own keys, like halfway there. And then like, just, there's like $100 on this thing or that thing, but there's like it's not to where if they're like, sorry, it's ours, I'd be like, I'd fight it. Nah, I don't care.
Same. But why do you say that? So DeFi, it's kind of your own keys. Like, why do you say that?
Yeah, that's where it gets tricky, because we're talking about hair split definitions, and sometimes they can be useful, sometimes they can't. Maybe they can here. I think the most secure thing is to hold your own keys. Like you solely have the keys to do anything with this, right? And you can just send and receive whatever, like the entirety of the balance in those keys and nothing else. And then when you have of 95% the same thing, but still a slight thing would be like, what if you're like, so if you have that in something like a masternode or something where you're getting income from that, it's still entirely your own keys. But then when you start doing like staking through like a proof of stake thing, like with Ethereum, it's almost exactly the same thing, except you could still possibly be slashed and lose your money. Very small percentage, but it did happen to one ETH validator so far. We had some like accidental thing, but that's mostly your own keys. But then if you have something in like DeFi, obviously that's a giant broad stroke. There's millions of permutations, but you do have like, you don't have to trust the individual, and it is through your keys that you get your money back. But let's just say like a liquidity pool, you're not in sole possession of the keys of your own funds in there. I just
want to say this really quick. Yes. I know that you don't like the same DeFi platform or the same DeFi assets that I like, but the DeFi assets that I like, you're in 100% control of your keys the entire time. So
and there's no risk of any kind of a like hack or something, like an exploit draining a pool.
There's no admin keys. It's a, and
there's no slashing.
No, there's no slashing.
So I put that then at the top. So that is hold your own keys. But then a lot of
and you know that, but you don't like it still.
Oh, are we alluding to the thing?
We don't have to say it. We don't have to.
Are we alluding to? Yeah, well, that's.
I'm just giving you a hard time.
That's a whole different conversation that I'm sure could go on forever. But I guess my point being, like, who has time to read terms of services through the fine print? I mean, and I'm sure, like, especially who can be a legal expert. So the whole entire point of crypto is so you don't have to worry about that stuff, right? Where you just entirely,
it is.
You're kind of off that. So let's hit this thing right here because it's kind of interesting. So I didn't find the exact announcement stuff that I wanted to see, but anyway, bankrupt crypto lender Voyager Digital received initial court approval for a proposed $1 billion sale of its assets to Binance.us and said it will seek to expedite a U.S. national security review of the deal. National security, whatever. But the parts that I didn't re-find that I was looking at yesterday in some Twitter thread at like late at night on my phone, and I didn't find it again. But apparently Binance is saying that they're going to allow people to get a Binance.us account, like the Voyager customers will be able to do that. And then once they have that, and this will be early February, I guess, they'll be able to withdraw all their funds if they want to. Mm-hmm. So basically Binance is just absorbing Binance.us. I mean, but Binance, come on, is absorbing Voyager, and they're just like being good for whatever the missing money is. So now the customers can just take out all their own money, and Binance is just taking the hit, and just, I guess, the gains they make in market adoption in this region and stuff is, I guess, worth it long term for the initial hit of you have to account for a lot of money that just isn't there.
I mean, Binance is doing, like, Binance and CZ, the PR team behind that entity is doing an incredible job right now of making Binance and CZ look good. Like, I've never been a huge fan of CZ until like the last 3 months. And now I'm like, okay, maybe this guy's all right. Like, and if they're impacting me and I know how that whole thing works, like, yeah, they're doing incredible work.
Yeah. I mean, I agree. That's the thing. I don't trust CZ. That's one thing that.
Well, I don't trust him either, but he's definitely doing a good job of media manipulation right now.
I think what he did, I think it's part of being as they say, long on the tooth, right? He's been in this game a long time. He's had a huge hack before. He's talked about rolling back the Bitcoin blockchain, and then everyone freaked out and he pretended he didn't say that. And then he's been through some wars, right? And as a result, I still think, like, first off, he's got a bunch of tricks up his sleeve, a bunch of like shady stuff probably, but he's also kind of learned, he's kind of the anti-SBF in some ways, in that he is very wily as far as he knows what are the limits of here, how are people going to come after him, how to mitigate for this, whereas SBF not only didn't know that, but he was kind of the opposite of that. If he just, YOLO bro, just like boom, just acting with reckless narcissistic abandon. But so first off, I think it's pretty obvious that Binance had an idea of FTX's troubles way before a lot of people. And I also think it's pretty obvious that it was an intentional poke to a certain extent. Some of it was just removing their risk from FTX, but some of it was, let's teach this guy a lesson kind of thing. I don't know if they knew how big of a lesson they'd end up teaching him, but I think they wanted to put them in a compromised position a little bit. So that's like one of those tricks is like, oh, you think you can play with the big dogs? Let me do this thing and like do it all at once so that people notice, but I don't have to announce it, but then still just address it when you don't have to. And just saying, we're trying to make sure that the market impact is minimal. It's like, get the fuck out. Like, no, you know what you're doing. There's some like sly things. And then I think that they had been through enough bull and bear markets. They saw all this advertising and stuff. They know the money would be gone in a few months or a year or so. And they just said, you know what? We can get a lot of cheap real estate at the bottom of the bear market if we just don't do that. And just waiting for everyone else to screw up. Come on in.
And then buy up their stuff and look like heroes in the process.
Yeah. And there's a bunch of things that Binance has done that are similar to that. Like, for example, not being able to operate in the U.S. because of all the weird stuff that they do. And then saying, well, we'll do Binance.us, completely separate entity. But, like, really, it's like there's been a lot of evidence of on-chain commingling of funds between Binance and Binance US, which is they're not supposed to be doing. But whatever, they're getting away with it. He's figured out how to get away with it. And then also just the BNB / Binance Smart Chain kind of thing, where they're kind of saying they're seeing into the future, the not too distant future, where centralized exchanges are going to run into issues. And you're saying, well, we'll be there too. We'll be on DeFi too. We'll be DeFi, but see DeFi, which I'm not the biggest fan of that, but it shows like. Before every exchange had their token, like now they had their token. They're like the first ones. They're just like just ahead of the game. And so I just wouldn't bet against CZ. Like I don't have to trust him, but I'm not going to bet against him.
Yeah. So speaking of that, it was something I was thinking this when you sent me the list of articles that you wanted to discuss today. I was like, every single one of these is a Cointelegraph article. And I had to like poke at you a little bit because for one, I don't know if you're aware of this or not, but Cointelegraph is largely sponsored by coinmarketcap.com, which of course is owned by Binance. And then also like certain PR agencies have relationships with different media outlets and some have relationships with multiple media outlets. But there is one particular PR agency that has a relationship with Cointelegraph, and really almost everything that gets published via Cointelegraph gets approved by this PR agency. So I just didn't know if you were aware of the bias.
Yes, the reason I go with Cointelegraph. So first off, if stuff pops up like on Twitter, I bookmark it and throw it up here. If I'm like, what are we going to talk about in a couple days? I go to like one source that has headlines you can easily read. And the biggest thing about Cointelegraph is they're prolific. They publish a lot of things. So no
doubt. Yeah. I like Cointelegraph.
So like, it's purely through laziness. But yes, I am aware that they've done. I'm aware of some, some of their inner works. I've done business with them before too, so I'm not gonna say too much. But like,
no, I've done business with them as well. I am a PR agent. Like I like Cointelegraph, and generally speaking, what matters is that the content is like correct. At least
which is
from
not
some
always
angle.
True, but
but at least from some angle or perspective, and then also that like it's readable, right? Like that they're journalists or their writers do a good job of conveying information that is easy for the audience to consume. And Cointelegraph absolutely does that. So like it's among the best for sure.
Yeah. And I've been on both sides of the Cointelegraph thing. That was my first working all on crypto job back in 2015, was writing for them. And then after a while, didn't do that for a while. And then I came back and did some like business partnerships type stuff. And I've been through there's a lot of through all the ups and downs of everything. And it just so for example, with the DCG stuff, I wanted a CoinDesk article on that, but CoinDesk wouldn't say anything for a while because they're a DCG subsidiary and they don't want to be airing, but they had to eventually. And so also CoinDesk, the thing is CoinDesk in the past has clearly had an agenda, and I know they shuffled some things around, but there've been certain writers or writing stuff that had a specific agenda and then got cleaned out later or whatever. But there's a much more clear focus, bias, and agenda. With Cointelegraph, I have more of a sense of it's just shotgunning everything out there. Maybe it's not reliable information always, but it's harder to find. Well, should we publish this or not? It's no, are they going to pay? Sure, publish it. or just can we do? Is it a headline? Publish it. And so yeah. So
are people going to read it? That's I read an article, Confessions of a Crypto Insider, where one of the articles is entirely about how crypto media works, and I'm the most important thing that they care about the most is, are people going to click and read this article? And if they are, that's it. So the thing that you should think about if you're trying to get crypto media coverage, particularly if you're trying to get it for free, is this an article people are going to want to read? Does this story provide more value to the media outlet for covering it than it does to me for getting it covered?
Yeah, that's for sure. Let me hit this one because you suggested it, right? The Nexo one. Bulgaria, now it's a Bloomberg one. And they're not very reliable, but whatever. Bulgaria charges foreign probe into crypto lender Nexo. Allegations include money laundering, tax, computer crimes. Nexo is the latest major crypto firm to run afoul of the authorities. Boom, boom, boom. Another one bites the dust. Just keeps on going. There's just another one. And I felt like it would be fun to highlight this tweet from Kurt. Says Nexo was raided by 300 police officers yesterday. The DOJ is prepping indictments against Binance. Gensler's coming out personally to sue Gemini and Genesis. Whatever's up with DCG and Crypto.com, who also laid off 20% of their workforce. And crypto's pumping while influencers flex about bull markets. Yeah, I have a very slightly different take than what Kurt's saying here. The take is that this is quite bullish for crypto in a lot of ways, right? In the long term. As my friend Chuck Williams, I don't know if you know the guy, but he likes to say the revealing is healing. And so, yeah, Nexo's going kaput, probably. Everything is shaken up. I think that we're gonna have a much healthier grounding to stand on, or ground to stand on after all this is over. Do you share the optimism, or do you think it's going to be some lean years instead?
No, I definitely think that there's going to be lean years, and there's going to be a lot of people who don't know the difference between real crypto, real decentralized crypto, and the, centralized crypto products that failed. And they're going to, as a result, think that all crypto is this massive scam, this massive Ponzi scheme, and can't be trusted, because all they see are the headlines related to, FTX and Celsius and Nexo and, all of these other centralized entities that failed. But I do think it's in our best interest for the centralized entities to fail, so that we can say look, this one really doesn't have key. This one really doesn't have admin keys. Look, you are in custody of your funds the whole time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I should make also make a distinction between centralized entities and corrupt, fraudulent entities, because they do there's a lot of overlap, right? Because they are all, one is always the other, but the other is not always the first, right? So for example, I'm not saying anything. So there's obviously been some funny business over the years at Coinbase. However, if Coinbase collapsed, I think that would be a detriment to the market because of the access that provides, the on-ramps for so many people. And there's a few companies like that it's like, even though they're centralized, I kind of like having them around. But
Sure.
a lot of like all the corrupt scammies, like Binance, if Binance went away, oh no, that would be really bad. That would take a while to get over for the industry.
Yeah.
And not necessarily like long term, like insurmountable, but like it's still, I still would rather them not like collapse. It's okay if they just sort of seed grounded DeFi over time. But yeah, on the overhaul, I love the shakeout of these like centralized institutions. Like, I cannot believe the insane stuff the FTX got away with, that they, for as long as they did. And it's crazy to me that like such a fraudulent enterprise is just operating at the highest of levels out there. And I'm very glad to see that kind of like washed out. And then all these crypto companies that are just like, well, we're going to go, we're going to provide a lending product. We're going to give a DeFi-esque like yield product to try to compete, except instead of some weird, protocol thing, they just end up like speculating on the money and like lending it out. And then that collapses. And then you have all these like capital funds manipulating all this kind of stuff. Boom, that whole thing blows up. So all those bombs that are blowing up are just like kind of like shaking down the bad parts of the ecosystem, like tearing out the rot. Of course, a lot of stuff collapses, but at least it collapses to like a stable foundation at the end.
I think your audio cut out at the end for me.
Did it? Can you still hear me right now?
Yeah, I can hear you now. Or maybe you just stopped talking and I didn't know.
I did stop talking. That also
okay.
happened.
Okay. So yeah, I mean, yeah, like I agree with you. I think that, if Coinbase were to fail or like spectacularly go bankrupt like FTX, like, yeah, that would be very bad, right? Like, I don't want to see Binance go down. That said, yeah, like I think it's probably for everyone who really is who really does have custody of their assets, it's in our best interest.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Let me hit on, there's just a couple left that aren't quite nearly as juicy or deep conversation provoking or whatever you want to call it. Just remind everyone, if you want to start throwing in some super chats, now is a good time to do it because we're past the hour mark already, and I don't know how long I can keep this nice young lady on before she gets tired of me and goes back to her fuzzy chair. All right, so Miss Universe contestant represents El Salvador with a Bitcoin-inspired costume. Picture is not accurate, by the way, but you don't need a sash to walk around dressed as cash, said the Miss Universe 2022 announcer, as Alejandra Guajardo showed off her cryptocurrency-themed costume. Totally, I guess, irrelevant, but culturally interesting, right? That El Salvador its branding as the Bitcoin country stuck, right? And this continues to stick. It wasn't just, they did an experiment. It's like they're known as that. And I guess, in my opinion, that might be the most lasting effect of the El Salvador legalization or the crypto law stuff is kind of like the branding of it. I don't know what your take on that is.
I mean, her costume looked gorgeous. It was obviously like great advertising for Bitcoin. Yeah, I mean, I think there are a lot of people who have said like El Salvador would have been in a better position today if they hadn't adopted Bitcoin as legal tender, but kept the US dollar, because even with inflation, Bitcoin has lost more value than the dollar. But that said, it's not like they forced their citizens to hold only Bitcoin or something.
Yeah. I mean, clearly they're down on, like, the calculus, right? Is clearly they're down on the money they spent, the government itself spent on Bitcoin. They're down on that. From what I know, obviously, I don't know, but from what we think we know, they're down on that. Also, it cost a lot of money to build the Chivo app, build all the ATMs, build the infrastructure, hire a bunch of people, like all that stuff, and then figuring out the law and the logistics and all that kind of stuff. That was all costs, and those costs are gone. Those are negative. Now, the other side of things, right, is it seems no one knew where El Salvador was or what it was. They probably thought it's one of the 32 Mexican states or something. Like, maybe I'm just being overly critical of Americans in particular, but like a lot of people just did not know or care about El Salvador. And then now they're like, oh, this is a country. Like now they're, hey, why don't we go look up tourism there or something? So like from tourism and from foreign investment, which is the big one, I think that those are the big positive takeaways of this thing. Is like, first off, there's crypto nerd bros who will come and visit the country who otherwise wouldn't. And there's also just like people who don't care about crypto that heard about it because of the Bitcoin law and are like, now instead of like Cancun, maybe I'll try this out, you know? And then they could go do that. But the biggest one has been like people investing, like building companies and, you know, all that foreign money coming into the country as a result of the signal of we are pro technology and we're going to directly incentivize people to come here and be all about that life. So that seems to be what they're I guess maybe they broke even. I don't know how to calculate that, but they seem to have sort of broken even by now. Maybe in the long term it'll be positive for them. I don't know what you think.
Yeah, no, I think that you made some great points, and you're probably right. I mean, I'm sure, in the short term, it wasn't the, boom to their economy that they really like wanted or needed. But again, you can't really expect, national policy changes to make effect overnight. So, in 2 years from now, people may be saying, "Oh, wow, El Salvador's booming,"
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's the thing. Like I know a few. I'm gonna have to visit at some point, maybe this year, maybe not. But like from the people I know who visited, and people who I know who live there, there's obviously conflicting messages about exactly how much Bitcoin adoption there is. It seems like it's there, but it's light. It's like the tech, the big box places, and the kind of like in the cities and stuff. You can kind of spend it. They get occasional customers, mostly foreigners, but not exclusively. And like, it doesn't seem like the actual adoption as a currency has gone amazingly, but it's not zero either. That's my feeling. But the rest of the stuff seems to be pretty, obvious what, the benefits of all that are. I think it's probably a win as long as they can find out how to not have it be a loss. As long as they don't have to sell a whole bunch of Bitcoin at low prices. As long as they don't like have a bunch of weird scandals with like the payment processors and stuff. As long as like they don't have like Bukele decides to become even more of a dictator and start shooting people, and then there's an uprising and then they kick him out, and then now they just get rid of the law because it's like a symbol of the old regime, and then it's all a big disaster. As long as all that stuff doesn't happen, as long as they don't crash and burn, I think it's going to be a positive because of all
that's a big stuff. If. That's a big if, Joel.
Well, I know. I mean, yeah. The world's a little bit of a crazy place. But so on the other end of the adoption side of things, Nigeria revisits its payments landscape amid sluggish eNaira adoption. The Nigerian central bank has outlined key focus areas for its national payment system in a 2-year roadmap leading up to 2025. And of course, there's a bunch of like specifics there that aren't really super relevant. But like the main takeaway is Nigeria is kind of booming with crypto. There's a lot of demand and stuff. And they debuted their CBDC. It's one of, I guess, the bigger CBDCs out there right now, is in the more high-profile ones. It's like mainnet. But the adoption isn't there. Where was... Supposedly, a Bloomberg report in October 2022 said the usage of the eNaira is at just 0.5% of the country's population. So, for a government-mandated thing, that's not very high. Right. And I think, what do you think of the prospects of them turning around the CBDC thing? Do you think they're going to make it work, or do you think they're going to just let crypto do its thing organically?
So I think that CBDCs stand a better chance in developed actually gaining adoption in developed countries where larger portions of the people are still like comfortable and thereby like at least somewhat trusting of government agencies, right? So like in places like Nigeria, the people don't trust their governments at all. They don't want, they know that they can get in trouble for buying certain things, selling certain things, having certain amounts of money, and they don't want, to have these social credit scores that can then, get them killed or whatever else, have them locked away. So I think if CBDCs are going to be successful, we're going to see their adoption in places like the United States or Europe or, other developed countries.
Yeah, probably true. I'm also wondering, like, the thing with CBDCs is it's such a like the concept is clear, but as far it's kind of like saying, well, let's do this, but on the blockchain. It's such a vague thing where the devil's in the details, and a lot of times, if you just like create your company employee database and put that on a blockchain for some reason, it just is annoying for the same thing you used to do. So, like for example, if you have the US dollar, if you want a Fed now, whatever, CBDC, first off, how is a CBDC different from a CBC, a central bank currency? How is the digital dollar different from the dollar? Other than it's on digital payment rails. And we already kind of have that. And this is where I don't know which way it's going to go, because most government ideas just suck. They're not going anywhere. The government already has a central bank currency. They don't need another one. They're just trying to put it on the digital rails so they can have a currency they can control and track. Now, the question is, like, what is it going to be? Now, are they going to create an entirely new, blockchain-esque network for their CBDC, and then just sort of like run it there, like make everyone, now your bank has to use this instead, or you can have your dollars there instead? Or are they just going to have too many problems with it and just say, you know what, we're just going to start tokenizing the US dollar now on making an actual stable coin on existing networks like Ethereum and Polygon and Tron and all these other places? I'm sort of like, I have no idea which way it's going to go. I'm starting to lean towards the second option though, because like USDC, for example, already censors some transactions, right?
Right.
It's already essentially a censored tracked token. And it's like, at some point, are they just going to do USD? That's it. And just there's the USD, not USD coin, just USD, and just make stable coins either illegal or make them have to register with all these onerous things that basically does the same thing. Like, I almost think that the easier path to the control that they're looking for is just to make them like a token on existing chains, as long as they can kind of track and then censor on those specific chains. Like, why do they need their own thing if the Federal Reserve issues the US dollar, which is the value of of USDC, and they can tell USDC to censor whatever address they want already? It's kind of strange.
No, I hear you. I think it's really a matter of like whether or not they feel like they have enough control over the network, So like, I mean, maybe anything shy of 100% control is not enough control.
Yeah.
Maybe not. Maybe, hey, we just need to know that we can roll back transactions if this, and this, or we need to know that we can block transactions of this, that have ever interacted with, X wallets. I don't know. I don't know exactly what it is that they're looking for. I mean, I think like talking about things like establishing a social credit system and, the ability to completely turn someone off or, completely limit someone's ability to access funds would require more control than, Ethereum can offer.
Yeah. I mean, I guess we'll see. The real thing is Ethereum and other things like that has like pseudonymity where anyone can create an account, and
Yeah.
even though you can decide who's behind those accounts, or you could just say you can only send to these pre-approved accounts, or like build in all that logic, which makes it super expensive and slow to and stuff to send. That might be too clunky of a thing. I think at some point, if you come up with a digital identity system that's on chain, that's not just like, well, we know who's behind this address. It's like actually, you have to like only ones with this specific KYC flag NFT, right? You have your KYC NFT in your Ethereum address, and it can only be sent to those that have that, and then they can just decide to turn off which of those specific ones. It would have to, all that cause more computation, which makes the fees more expensive, and there's just a lot of like kind of unknown stuff. But I mean, there's a possibility that they might just, the thing is, like, what are the banks going to do? Because the banks have had a huge role in the payment system so far. And if you just cut out the banks and say, look, the Fed is going to just issue it all and censor payments at the source and all this kind of stuff, then the banks are going to be upset, and they have a lot of money. So that's where it's kind of stablecoins sort of come in, because there's different issuers like BUSD, obviously, USDC, Tether, all these other kinds of things. And also the government loves to print money, and that's a way for them to print more money than they've already printed without printing more at the source. You can like print like $1 trillion and then issue 1.5 trillion like stable coins and say, oh, they're mostly backed or something, and then like you can double inflate there. So there might be, it's going to be really interesting. I think if they can do what they want easily, right, to where it works, I think that they will start to scrap like external CBDC plans and just be like, look, all you banks have to have like your ability to issue this money has to come with Federal Reserve approval. Each bank gets their own CBDC that they issue, or like a few of them do, right? And then the Fed gets to just control at the source, either through the banks, or the Fed just does FedCoin on all these blockchains. And then but only if it's easy enough. The thing is, my confidence in the government's in their I should say willingness to issue a CBDC from scratch and all that is very high. My confidence in their ability to deliver in a way that will not be like the eNaira and just like fizzle out is very low. So I don't know if they could pull it off in like I mean, it's been like, what, 14 years of crypto, and they haven't figured this out yet. Like, it might be another 14 years. Who knows? What do you think?
I guess I don't know. I mean, I think that there are government agencies who are looking to consult and hire people who work within the crypto space right now, so that they can, so that they have more potential of pulling this off. But whether or not it will happen, I don't know.
Yeah, are you leaning one side or another? Is our CBDCs going to end up being their own whole different network and stuff? Or are they just going to be government issued stablecoins on existing networks? Or are they going to be bank issued but government sanctioned and approved? Which of those three are you leaning towards?
I mean, if I were central banks, I would want complete control, right? Like, just trying to put myself in their shoes. Like, I would want complete control, which would mean I would want my own network.
Yeah, but now the question is, they also would like there to be no crypto, right?
Right.
And that's not happening. They've settled for that. So what else are they going to settle for? What's going to be good enough for them?
Yeah. I don't know. I guess we'll find out.
Yeah, I think they're going to start using, if I were to guess more specifically, I would guess that they're going to start using stuff like USDC and like these like approved stable coins, and kind of working with those and cracking down a little bit more on how that works while they're realizing they're going to fail at their own network, and then they're making their own stable coin on all these networks. like the direct from the source, but they don't have to build like this whole infrastructure. They just like kind of run that. That's probably what they're going to do.
All right.
It's in the books. It's a prediction. I will lose no money if I'm wrong. So finally, U.S. House Republicans plan to establish a crypto-focused subcommittee, according to this report. Representatives French Hill and Warren Davidson will reportedly be the chair and vice chair of the subcommittee focused on issues related to crypto. It's kind of interesting you finally have this now. They're finally coming up with their own little solution, right? And it's kind of taken them long enough, but I don't know. Here's the thing. Here's the big question. Do you think this is going to result in a better approach to crypto because it's more educated, more focused kind of thing? Or do you think it's just going to end up being like more of the same dumb, like boomer nonsense, but just more of it being cranked out and thrown at us?
I mean, I think it probably depends on who they hire as their consultants, right?
SBF. That's how he makes all the money back.
Yeah, right. Like, are they going to hire people who don't compromise and who are like, knowledgeable and who will stand up for, real crypto and real decentralization? Or are they going to hire people who are easy to manipulate and control and will just cave to whatever, their whims are? I don't know.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see. And of course, with politics, I don't think either major party is for crypto. I think the Dems tend to mostly be against it. And Republicans are just in the middle of the road. So just whichever issue runs in their political hot potato game, whichever way that swings, just like with the IRS thing, both parties want to take a lot of Americans' money and spend it. But one party wants to send armies of IRS agents out after small business owners, and the other one finds it politically expedient to do things a different way. And for us right now, that's a good thing, even though neither is looking out for our best interests. So that's kind of the way it is. Do you have any concluding thoughts / things you want to shill in the waning hours of the show?
Not really. I read a column called Confessions of Crypto Insider. It's in a magazine called Crypto Mag. You can find it at Barnes & Noble, select 7-Elevens and Walmarts.
Yeah. Might have heard about it.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Did you ever go to Barnes & Noble and get one?
No, I haven't been out of the house. I mean, I have left the house, but I haven't been all the way out there.
I hear you.
If you harass me via Twitter DM, I will probably do it because I think I can find a way to pay in crypto there too, which would be fun. I paid in crypto for the thing and the blah, blah, blah. Yay.
Yeah.
That'll be good. So people follow you on Twitter at NRDGRL, nerd girl, like without the vowels, 007 as in, and yeah, that's a good place to follow you. I have promised people that by the end of the month, I'll release my updated How to Live on Crypto series for 2023. And, I'm starting to freak out because I have a lot of work to do, but I will try my best to make that happen. Because what I'm really, where I got most of it, like I can have a video done pretty quickly within a day or two. Most of it is just like the research, and I've gotten most of it done. But big part of that is on my site. I'm going to have a page of crypto businesses that you can sort, where you can say like bill pay. I want to pay my bills with this coin, and I live in this country or region, and it just brings it up. And so you can be bill pay, like everyday shopping, like travel, like whatever, like just so people can who say I don't know how to live on crypto, be like, watch this video. It shows you basically how to, like, the kinds of tools you should look into, some of the basic stuff, and then just hit up this directory if you want like specific details for your region and stuff, and then just start doing it, and then shut up about how you can. So
cool.
There you go.
Yeah, I want to see that when you come out with it.
Yeah, I'll make sure to share it all over the place. Well, thanks everyone for watching. It's been a great chat. Thanks very much, Nicole, for being on. I would give you an NFT, but I already did. And yeah, hopefully that works. Now, next week is the next installment it's another one of these types of shows. Sadly, Nicole won't be on that one unless she begs me again, in which case I might say yes, but usually we try to switch up guests. But right after that is the second installment of the Zcash podcast, which I started last month. And I'm going to make a more official announcement about that probably on Monday, but to gather questions and stuff from the community, et cetera, et cetera. So that'll be a lot of fun. Enjoy you guys' weekend. Have a good one. And never forget, taxation is theft. See you guys around.